There are over 200 carriage horses living and working in New York City. From cramped stalls in Hell's Kitchen to the chaos of Times Square. This is the life of a New York City carriage horse. The injured have been kept hard at work, and the exhausted have died in the street. They share the road with 8 million people, 18-wheeler trucks and double-decker buses. It's time to take our blinders off. Sign the petition at banhorsecarriages.nyc. Tell your city council there's no room for inhumanity on the streets of New York.
You got one. Sorry about that.
Signs say, get the carriage horses out of traffic, NY class.
If our mayor will not deliver on his promise, New Yorkers have no choice but to take action ourselves. Mayor de Blasio, keep your promise!
You can take a pedicab, ride a bike, take the big bus.
For emergency vehicles and motorists, carriage drivers continually make unlawful and dangerous U-turns on 59th Street in order to get back to the current half line locations after giving rides in the park. Relocating the half line will ease street congestion and likely increase public safety, in addition to improving the well-being and safety of the horses. Carriage horses currently block fire hydrants all along 59th Street as well. Horses with their highly evolved flight drive should not be forced to constantly maneuver among motor vehicles. There have been dozens of reported horse and vehicle crashes, collapses, and runaway spooked horses.
These horses get hit by cars. Imagine their agony. They don't even have a pasture. They live in warehouses.
It's just a creature, and it's here with all of these cables and, with this insane carriage, It's like slavery, but for an animal. It's not right.
I'm on the board of directors of Voters for Animal Rights. I'm here today to voice my support for this important rule change that will positively affect the carriage horses in New York City. I've lived around New York City my whole life, and for as long as I can remember, it has always been heartbreaking to see the carriage horses, especially lined up on the current hack line along Central Park South. It's the saddest line of horses one could ever see. In addition to the immense cruelty involved in the horse carriage industry, there are many public safety risks. Central Park South is a constantly busy street with traffic going in both directions. The horses currently lined up there cause congestion and even interfere with emergency vehicles like ambulances that need to move fast through traffic. Many horse carriage drivers make illegal U-turns and run red lights all around the city, particularly around the area of Central Park South, to get to and from the current hack line. There have been numerous accidents involving horses which have resulted in fatalities and injuries. This madness needs to stop. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that antiquated horse-drawn carriages do not belong in 2018 New York City traffic with cars, buses, trucks, ambulances, honking horns, pedestrians, etc. Horses do not deserve to stand behind these vehicles breathing in exhaust fumes, and yet they do in this backwards industry. Numerous horses have fallen victim to the inhumane practices of the industry. They collapse from exhaustion, get spooked, run wildly through traffic, causing traffic accidents which have resulted in fatalities and injuries for horses and people. Just yesterday, a horse collapsed while the driver raced around Columbus Circle to get to the hack line during dangerous rush hour traffic. Horses are prey animals, and being forced to endure congested city traffic with loud noises, fast vehicles, pedestrians is a recipe for disaster and nothing short of abuse. It is terribly irresponsible and dangerous for both horses and people. Moving the horses' hack line into Central Park away from cars would significantly improve their quality of life and improve the city's safety. The horses would be less stressed inside the park, and Central Park South would be clear for vehicle traffic and pedestrians to walk freely without the fear of a horse accident. Thank you.
These images conjure up ideas of tradition in times of old.
People may think of horse-drawn carriages as something that's quaint or perhaps romantic.
But this is anything but. Nose-to-tail pipe stop-and-go traffic. The horses are forced to endure daily near misses of traffic crashes. sometimes they don't miss. These pictures show what happens when traditional times of old meet the modern era of one of the world's biggest cities.
No horse should be forced to parade up and down congested traffic, weaving in and out of taxi cabs and trucks and tourists. This is a recipe for disaster for both people and horses. It's unsafe, it's inhumane, and it's a throwback to the past.
Yet these horses will take you on a ride in all conditions.
The horses are forced to work year-round. In a city like New York, where there's a change in climate, you know, they're working in 100-degree weather in the summer and 0-degree weather in the winter. And the conditions are just too tough on horses.
But no one here seems to notice. And while the horse, who's often elderly, is only supposed to work a maximum of 9 hours a day, those laws aren't enforced. So customers looking for adventure keep getting in the carriage, putting the horse through another agonizing trot in harsh conditions. Unfortunately, the cruelty doesn't end there. When the horses are returned to their stables, they have barely enough room to lie down, essential to achieve a deep sleep. And even if they could lie down, there's not enough bedding to make it comfortable.
Horse-drawn carriages do not belong in congested cities like New York City.
For these horses, there is no reward for the misery they're put through. And the Humane Society of the United States wants people to know what they're getting into when they get in a horse-drawn carriage.
President of the New York State Horse Council and a member of the New York Farm Bureau. The carriage horses are an iconic symbol of New York City, and they're part of our cultural heritage, not only of New York but also of America. They provide economic benefits to the city through tourism and tax revenues. Today's carriage horses provide a presence and exposure to rural animals not available to many elsewhere. The NY carriage horses have stood on Central Park South and Grand Army Plaza for over 150 years at their current designated stands. People know to find them there, opposite the hotels and adjacent to the park. The good care of the horses is well documented. We are concerned that the carriage drivers will suffer loss of trade from fewer passers-by inside Central Park, which is so much quieter than where they are now. Loss of their night carriage rides business. Tourists will not go inside the park after sunset to board a carriage. Loss of income for the drivers, who may eventually not afford to keep their stables and their horses. The routing of the carriage horses is likely to bring them onto the streets for longer distances. Where they are now is the quickest route back to their stables. There are no water troughs at any of the proposed stands, and the horses need piped running water during winter especially, and during summer. There's nothing there, there's no provision for them, whereas now they have water troughs when they start the ride and when they finish. A lot of thought needs to go into the provision for the horses if they're going to be moved into the park. They should stay where they are right now.
I'm a commissioner on the Tax Limousine Commission. I'm not here on behalf of that agency today, but I am a commissioner, and we are in the middle of our own hearing today, and I literally ran out on a lunch break to come here to speak because this issue has been very important to me. I publicly stated I think the horses should be under the jurisdiction of the Tax Limousine Commission, since we oversee 4 hire vehicles in the city. And I don't know why it's not, but this teeny little speck of relief for these horses to put them in the park should be one of a bunch of steps that need to be taken. The temperature regulations are not proper and are inhumane. The hours they are allowed to work is inhumane. There's so many things that need to be done to make this a humane industry, if it even can be a humane industry, which I personally do not think it can be. But I'm here to say today, I applaud the DOT for taking this initiative. This is the very least we can do to give these horses a modicum of relief from the cars and the traffic and being spooked and all these things all these other people testified to today on behalf of this proposal. So again, I'm not here speaking on behalf of the TLC, but I think the TLC should have this industry, and if they did, I would make sure that there were a lot more rules that went into effect to protect these animals.
There are over 200 carriage horses living and working in New York City. From cramped stalls in Hell's Kitchen to the chaos of Times Square. This is the life of a New York City carriage horse. The injured have been kept hard at work, and the exhausted have died in the street. They share the road with 8 million people, 18-wheeler trucks and double-decker buses. It's time to take our blinders off. Sign the petition at banhorsecarriages.nyc. Tell your city council there's no room for inhumanity on the streets of New York.
Member Linda B. Rosenthal. I represent the Upper West Side, parts of the Hell's Kitchen neighborhoods in Manhattan. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on the critical issue of the horse-drawn carriages. I want to first acknowledge the countless tireless advocates, including my class and voters for animal rights, who for so long have fought for the well-being of carriage horses. For many years, I have joined advocates and animal lovers alike to call for an end to horse-drawn carriages in New York City. I commend the DOT and the city for today taking up a proposed rule change to finally bring some relief to the working horses in Central Park. The proposal to move all horse carriage boarding areas to within the park is a critical first step in addressing the well-being of the horses still used by the horse carriage industry. For decades, horses and carriages were as synonymous with New York City as skyscrapers and yellow cabs are today. Huge swaths of our city were designed specifically with horse carriages in mind. Many suggest Frederick Law Olmsted designed the winding roadways of Central Park. He did so in a manner that would ensure park's vistas could be viewed from the back of a horse carriage. By the late 1800s, the high point of our city's reliance on horses, there were an estimated 200,000 working horses in Manhattan and Brooklyn alone. However, much has changed in New York City since the late 1800s. We've moved from gas lamps to LED street lamps. Our cobblestone streets have for the most part been replaced with paved multi-lane streets, and horse-drawn buggies have been replaced by gas-powered and now increasingly electric-powered vehicles. This is an excellent first step. Horses have been forced to navigate noise, traffic, congestion, shrieking tires, motorcycle engines. They're forced to work long hours in high humidity, in rain. It's inhumane to keep them doing that. I applaud this move. It's the first step, and I look forward to working with all of you to continue to look out for the well-being of the horse-drawn carriages. Thank you.
Put your seatbelts on. You're in Manhattan traffic.
There's no seatbelts in carriage yet, Claudia. You idiot.
Good afternoon. My name is Nathan Semmel. I am an attorney and resident of Manhattan. I am in support of the DOT proposed plan. I have lived near the Hack Lines on Central Park South for years. You can't go 2 minutes on that street without seeing carriage drivers make dangerous, illegal U-turns so they can quickly get back into position for another fare. You can't walk that block without seeing a horse tied to or blocking a fire hydrant or a carriage double parked or jutting out into traffic. It is so fitting that we're here at the DOT because these drivers don't care about your traffic rules. And they break them on Central Park South probably more than anywhere else in the city. The industry wants you to believe their business will be negatively impacted because there will be little opportunity for walk-up customers. That is patently false. Central Park gets an estimated 40 million visitors a year. The 5 proposed boarding spots are tourist havens: Strawberry Fields, Tavern on the Green, East 72nd by Wallman Rink and the Boathouse, Grand Army Plaza by the Zoo, and the one on 7th Avenue that is as little as 20 feet from where the horses already line up on Central Park South. 2 of them already operate as de facto hack lines. I have recent photos of this for you, of the proposed West 67th Street spot by Tavern on the Green and the West 72nd spot by Strawberry Fields. I am an avid runner and biker, and I always see the drivers soliciting, starting, and ending rides at these locations. They want you to believe that there's no shade at the proposed boarding spots. The current hack line forces horses to stand for significant portions of the day in the sun, including the hottest parts of the day with no shade. They also must stand next to hot cars and buses idling in traffic or at red lights. Each of the proposed locations no longer have vehicle traffic, and they offer lots of shade, which you can see in additional photos that I have for you today, taken on bright, sunny days. There is no comparison. The proposed sites are better for the horses.
This is animal abuse and exploitation.
I'm a lifelong New Yorker, and I'm an advocate for social justice, including animal rights. Though I do support a ban on the horse carriage industry in New York City because of its inherent and institutionalized cruelty to the horses involved, today I'm testifying in favor of the proposal to move the hack line into Central Park. I have been extremely disappointed that the City Council not only failed to pass a ban, but didn't even make an effort to understand what the horses experience, except through the eyes of their legal owners and the financial and political status quo. Not just on the hack line on 59th Street, which is bad enough, but their entire lives in a small stall with no room to run around or interact naturally with other horses except for a 5-week vacation when the horses disappeared to some unknown place, and then eventually having them sold at auction and then transported to other countries to be slaughtered. Moving the horses inside the park does not address most of this, but it does make their daily experience a little better. For example, as others have said, the current hackline location at Central Park South, where horses line up and maneuver through for hours every day, is filled with constant traffic in 2 directions, honking horns, emergency vehicles, exhaust fumes, and street construction, all of which are stressful, and there are dozens of known examples of when horses ran away and in some cases collapsed or died. Central Park is a car-free, quieter, and cooler in warmer months and offers shade from the trees. Assuming the carriage horse drivers really had the horses' best interest at heart, they would agree to this.
You're supporting animal abuse.
They're in the same street as the traffic on wheel. I don't even understand how they keep allowing this to happen.
A resident of New York City my entire life, and I'm here to testify on behalf of this very small gesture toward bringing humane treatment to animals who are being exploited by thuggish, cynical, boorish, very small population of carriage-owning industry to the great detriment of any kind of human decency. Cities all over America are eliminating horse carriages. Charleston, it's a long list on these very same grounds. Not only is it an exploitation of a vulnerable animal to little purpose. Tourists aren't going to leave New York City because the horse carriages are in Central Park. It's a great compromise for the current terrible situation. Not only should the hack line be moved into Central Park, but I think a way should be found to stable the horses in Central Park. I don't know who owns the building where they are stabled now. I'm sure the hack industry is paying somebody something to use those facilities, and instead perhaps the horses could be stabled in the old police horse facilities in Central Park and have that money be paid to the city of New York. This is a question of financial exploitation, inhumanity versus humane treatment of a vulnerable animal that is iconic to everyone in the world. We can do better here in New York. We're supposed to be a civilized society.
Forget the animals, take care of the people. People above animals. Do these horses get to run around in pastures? 30 days paid vacation these guys get.
Hi, my name is Emily Hill. I am making these comments expressing my personal views only. I strongly support the DOT's amendment of the traffic rule that would establish horse carriage passenger boarding areas within the boundaries of Central Park and thereby end the hack line at 59th Street. This amendment would benefit not only the carriage horses, but also increase the safety of passengers, drivers, and nearby drivers and pedestrians. The current hack line at 59th Street is a highly congested area. While carriage rides are an idyllic tourist attraction, we must take into account the modern, frantic, and traffic-filled city we live in. Even with blinders on, horses can be easily stressed and cause a panic, with cars honking, car exhaust, and the constant movement of traffic in city streets. It is inhumane to make the horse carry passengers through an area so unnatural and potentially dangerous to them. Moreover, the potential risks posed by allowing these animals on the busy city streets is extremely high for pedestrians, carriage drivers, and passengers, as well as the horses. There have been numerous incidents where horses in this area have been spooked by uncontrollable aspects of congested streets. This past February, something as innocuous as a pedestrian opening an umbrella sent a frightened horse racing down the street without the carriage driver, resulting in 3 passengers going to the hospital. In another recent incident, a horse named Smoothie died a painful death on Central Park South after being frightened by nearby noise. If the rule is amended, however, the horse carriage boarding area will take place within the safety of the park and greatly minimize these risks and allow the horses to work within a far safer and more natural environment. As a result, I'm strongly urging the DOT to consider what would be in the best interest of the city and what would be most humane for the horses. Thank you.
You're supporting an inhumane industry. You think they belong in Midtown? They don't belong in this traffic. This is inhumane.
My name is Deborah Thomas, and I am an animal-loving, humane New Yorker who feels that having 19th century horse-drawn carriages in 21st century New York City traffic is both inhumane to the horses and very dangerous to us all. It's for this reason that I'd like to speak in support of moving the carriage horse hack line from Central Park South to a location inside the park. Personally, I would prefer a complete ban on having carriage horses in New York City for the sake of the horses. However, I feel that moving the horses into the park is definitely a step in the right direction, because besides saving the jobs of the carriage horse drivers, it will get the horses out of New York City traffic and into the park, where the air's fresher, additional shade, better access to water for the horses, slower pace will undoubtedly provide the horses with a much more humane working experience than they have now. Also, in the park, there will be less chance of horses being frightened by noises and colliding with cars and getting into accidents. Now, having said that, I would hope that any plan to move the horses into Central Park will include the following guarantees: that the horses will be standing in shady areas in Central Park, that watering troughs and other means of getting water to the horses will be placed near the horses, and the horses will be guaranteed an opportunity to drink water before and after each ride, that the horses will not be taken into areas with heavy traffic like Lincoln Center and Times Square, and that the age of the horses and temperature restrictions will be honored, and that when the horses retire, they'll be sent to horse sanctuaries and not to slaughter or anywhere else. It's for these reasons that I respectfully urge the New York City Department of Transportation to carry out its plan to move the carriage horses into Central Park. Thank you very much.
Fighting for animals? What are you doing? Shame on you for your lack of compassion.
Hi, my name is Jill Carnegie, and I'll be abbreviating my written testimony in the interest of saving some redundancies. I am a local entrepreneur, and I also work for animal advocacy through multiple organizations, and I am a longtime proud resident of Hell's Kitchen, meaning that I have been a longtime neighbor of these horses in question. I'm here to speak in support of this initiative. This is an amazing first step to actually take the consideration of the horses and their well-being into account over business. And that is something that New York City should proudly stand for, especially in the times that we are currently facing. Every single day, I see these horses engaging in activities in crazy traffic on 9th Avenue and 10th Avenue, including small collisions, including spooks, and including near fatal incidents every single day, day in and day out. Now, when they get to Central Park South, the drivers want you to believe that they spend most of their time inside the park, but clearly that's not true. They spend the majority of their time in two-way traffic on 59th Street. And how do we know this wait is long? Because you will see these drivers literally racing their horses up 10th Avenue in the morning to get first in line to earn more fares, because they might need to wait a while until they start to earn some of their cash tax-free income. Now, that being borne in mind is only a small part of the suffering they face. They're wearing these aggressive metal bits in their mouths for hours at a time. They live in stalls that are too tiny, and they are being subjected to individuals who are sitting here laughing at the mention of their welfare and well-being. And these individuals laughing at this are the ones who are profiting off their backs and not paying taxes to our amazing city for that benefit. And so let's go ahead and actually focus on the victims in this situation. It is not the employees and the drivers who are exploiting them for cash dollars. It is the horses who don't have a say in this matter. And this move is the least that we can do in this incredible progressive city of ours.
What about daily turnout in a pasture?
Where?
This is animal cruelty. Take your horse in. You can't leave your horse like this in a storm, for crying out loud.
I am here in support of the proposed DOT to establish horse carriage passenger boarding areas. When I lived across the street from Central Park on the Upper West Side, for 2 years, I witnessed the horses being pulled right through heavy traffic, while trembling, dehydrated, and under extreme distress. Horses are wild, they're sentient, and they're known throughout the ages to represent romance, beauty, and majesty. This illusion of parading them through traffic is leaving thousands upon thousands of visitors and New York City residents horrified. It is my belief that so long as men and women ride high up on one for a profit, then this issue of their freedom will not cease, and there will continue to be dis-ease. Could you imagine how incredibly kind it would be to bring the horses into the sanctuary of Central Park and start educating people about our magical friends? City programs could be established where children especially could learn how to care for them and walk alongside them again. Schools could visit the horses, hear fables of their bravery and friendship to us. How could we call ourselves a friend to these beautiful animals if we allow them to, just like yesterday, collapse in busy city traffic from exhaustion? Horses are not automobiles. A great city is one that rises with the time and says enough is enough to animal cruelty. It demands transparency on the treatment and overall welfare of all animals. The possibilities for new kinds of jobs, new kinds of services are endless. The enslavement of horses for a profit is providing the city of New York a blessed opportunity now to once and for all take a leadership role in the social justice movement of our time, that being of animal rights.
I'm the Senior Legislative Director for the ASPCA. On behalf of the ASPCA and its nearly 70,000 New York City supporters, I would like to express our support of the proposed rules establishing horse carriage passenger boarding areas within Central Park. The ASPCA believes that using horses to pull carriages through very busy and loud city streets is unsafe and an undeniable strain on the horse's quality of life. There are many unique distractions for horses on New York City streets, which create an unnatural, unnecessary, and undeniable strain on their quality of life. We fully supported past efforts to address the working and living conditions of the carriage horses and support any step in the right direction, like measures to restrict the location of activities for the horses. Moving the boarding areas for horse-drawn cabs into Central Park will reduce the amount of time that horses spend alongside vehicular traffic, limiting the amount of time they spend idling on congested city streets, breathing in fumes from buses, trucks, and cars while they wait for a fare. I'm going to keep it short. In closing, we appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today and will support any changes that will improve the health and welfare and safety of New York City's carriage horses. Thank you.